I wanted to get started now and introduce our two speakers for today. Well, our one speaker for today is Chaya Pamela, who's the SheTek founder. And we also have speaking with us, Kristi D'Angeli. So right now I'm going to stop sharing. And Chaya, if you could turn on your camera, I'm going to kick it over to you.
Joanne, good afternoon for people who are attending from East Coast. Good morning to West Coast, and then good evening to people in India. So I have seen some diversity in the participation, which is exciting. I would like to speak about one thing that SheTek is primarily focusing this year on, is to help people to understand what are the employability skills, the transformative skills that are required for you to be successful in your career. So this will help, the series will help you to actually understand the real scenarios at workplace that would how they're perceived or interacted by other people, or how they're being addressed by other people. You learn from different speakers, and that's the series we're going to introduce. And the employability skills, when I say, they are to do with communication skills, presentation skills, and also analytical thinking, networking, all these skills which are not usually taught at school, or you don't have specific training programs that relate to real life situations. As SheTek helps through our boot camps and many other training programs, it helps you and motivates you to get into the technology industry. But at the same time, once you get into something, you get a job, and how can you be successful? The only way you can be successful is not just being good at what you do, but also being able to acquire all these soft skills. So we felt that this is very critical for people to succeed and also progress in their career path. So this is one of such series we have introduced about personal branding, and we are very fortunate to have Kristi D'Angeli today with us. And Kristi is the CEO of Jersey Staffing Solutions, and she's actually has been CEO of many different organizations, and it would be very nice to hear from her, her success. And then she's also very helpful, and has been mentoring many individuals, and she's also a mentor of one of her employees. And Kristi is, what can I say? She's an entrepreneur, she's a speaker, she's more than anything, she's a people connector. So I would like to give it away to Kristi, who will be doing a workshop today on personal branding. And I hope you'll all enjoy this and learn from it. And with that, I would like to pass it on to Kristi. Thanks again for everyone for joining this session. Kristi?
Thank you, Chaya, for the introduction. I greatly appreciate it. So thank you all for joining me, as I had no idea you were literally across globes. So that's awesome that we have that attention to our audience today. So I'm really excited to talk to you about personal branding and how that's going to impact you, not just in your personal life, your professional life, but also just your job search as a whole. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen so we can get started with that. Okay, so one of the things I do want to stress here is I love interaction. So if you have questions as I'm going through the slides, please pop them into chat. And Joanne, if you could help navigate that, I'm happy to make this an interactive presentation if that works better for everybody. So let's go on to the first slide. So you may ask, what does personal branding mean? And this is really the tone that you're setting for yourself, your identity, just as who you are as a person and how you want to be perceived by others. You'll actually see a very famous quote by Jeff Bezos here, that your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So think to yourself, what do you think people are actually saying when you're not there? Is it good things? Is it bad things? Do you even have an idea of what that is? And this is where you have the opportunity to control what that messaging and mission is going to say, but you have to live and breathe it. So I'm going to kind of tell you about my journey first and how I established my brand and determined the direction that I wanted to go into. So one of the things I first thought about is who do I want to be? not necessarily what I want to be, right? Because what I want to be can change. We go through so many career changes or life changes in general, but we still want to be true to who we are. And I was someone who was raised as both a Girl Scout and a Boy Scout, believe it or not. And so for me, honesty and integrity is above everything for me. Being an open communicator, really giving everyone an opportunity and treating them like a human. So I thought, okay, well, let's determine what I want to be known for and what my mission statement is. So one of the things I always say is my mission statement, and I kind of live and breathe this, is one of the Girl Scout mottos, which is I would like to leave everything, everyone, and every place better than I found it. And that's my mission statement. So whether it's me at home helping my family and friends, or it's me at work, it's always how can I make my impact better than it was before I got there? Even if I can't particularly help the situation or the person, can I give them a piece of information that can help them on their journey? And so that's what I've kind of been known for. So you heard Chaya will say that I've been known as a connector. That's part of the brand that I've created, is because I always want to help everyone along the way. I'm known as people come to me saying, who do you know? Or what resource do you have? Or what can I try for this? So I've become known as that connector due to my mission statement. And that's really great for me because I'm seen as a resource that's valuable that people want to rely on. So what I would always recommend first before you start your personal brand is be thinking about, what is your mission statement? What values do you stand behind? And what do you want it to mean for you? Because as you can see by this picture, your brand really applies to so many different things. It's your communication style. It's your image. It's the quality of your work. It's the relationships that you build or how you don't build a relationship. Everything that you do is being seen as a perception of this is who she's known for or he's known for. And you have to think about, what does that look like? So it's actually a lot of using your emotional intelligence as well. And so there's a fun trick I always tell everyone that they should try. So we're going to do it right now. I always tell everyone, Google yourself and see what pops up. So let's go ahead and click into Google here. See if it works. There we go. So I'm actually going to do my maiden name, and then I'll do my married name, just because my maiden name has a little bit more under it. But if I Google myself, interestingly enough, you're going to see this is my brand. So you've got my website, you've got images and videos that I've done. So if we look at this, people immediately are going to see a professional person. Here's me where I mentor and coach with young students. Here's me as a president of a board event. Here's me at a speaking engagement with a chamber of commerce. These are all the race car that I own. So these are all the things that I do. So when you Google yourself, what images are people finding of yourself? Are they professional? Are they appropriate? Let's go back and just see what other articles. So you'll learn, you've got all your social media. So you have to be thinking about, what does your social media say about you? Career employers are certainly going to look at that, and we're going to expand more into that. But if we look at this, we're still going down. This whole first page is just me. It's me talking about laws that I've been involved in. It's, articles that I've been featured in. And if we go on, it'll most likely continue going on for a couple pages. And that's because I've created that brand. So let's talk about, what is my brand in general? So let me go back to my other screen here. Okay. So my brand is, just to get to know a little bit about me. I started my first company, Jersey Staffing, when I was 27. And I knew that I was young, but I was hungry, and I had a new way of doing things. And everyone was out to kind of say, you're too young, you can't do it yet. So I had to establish myself as a professional that was mature, somebody who had the experience, that had the poise and ability to navigate that room. So what did that mean? That mean I had to change my look. So I could be respected when I walked into a room as a professional. Means I had to watch my vocabulary and my drafting of communication. I really had to start at the beginning and thinking of, okay, I'm establishing myself now. I'm going to be a CEO. How do I want to be perceived? So over time, a lot of it is learning how to promote yourself. So for me, I became the largest non-collateral loan ever received in New Jersey. I then went on to win a New Jersey Biz. I was a featured women entrepreneur of top 25. I was in Forbes magazine as a leading entrepreneur. I won 40 under 40 at NJ Biz. And when I first started getting all these awards, I was kind of, that humble person of, that's great, I'm not going to talk about it. I don't want to make it all about me. But the thing is as a personal brand, you have to make it about you, because who's going to speak up for you if not yourself? So be proud of your accomplishments. Talk about what you've experienced, obviously with humility, but personal brand is making sure that people understand that you're more than what's on a piece of paper. Let them know about you as a person. So you definitely want to take some time to think about what is the message you want to push out. So let's go on to our next slide. So essentially, we're going to talk about what personal branding means for you in the business world first. So in the business world, a strong personal brand really helps you to get credibility with your customers and all of the people that you're working with. And again, that's what I talked about when I started my company. I had to be respected when I walked into a room, when I got a client on the phone, when I had to talk to a candidate. So I had to think about, how am I setting my tone? Am I talking at them, or am I talking with them about the situation? And I had to think about all the soft skills that come into my credibility. So this is where that emotional intelligence I talked about really comes into play. And it's your ability to be self-aware and really manage your behaviors. So, and thinking about, again, it's not just about you, because you're going to have an effect on those around you. So what effect are you making? This is also going to help differentiate you. Now, for me, my differentiators were my accomplishments and awards. For other people, it could be certifications that you've received in the business world. It could be new clients that you've closed, something quantifiable. It could be known that you're an expert in, data analytics and the tools that you've worked with. Those are all the things that you want to be thinking about in terms of your differentiation. But also, it's the opportunity for you to be seen as a thought leader. What do you want to be known for as the subject matter expert? Do you want to put out articles about that so people come to you for advice? Do you want to maybe think about what experiences you can share that others can learn from? This is something that I've done with a lot of the women and men that I've mentored, is they've gone through my mentoring programs and they've learned so much that they think about, how can I now share this knowledge with others? How can I set myself up as someone like my mentor, and I can mentor others? So it's also, how can you duplicate that effort of your brand? So I think about when Chaya and I first met. And we actually met at a business event, and I was talking to her about my third business endeavor, which is a women's networking group. And we were talking about how branding is everything, and your connections, the people that you meet. If I'm trying to grow a business, the only way I'm going to do that is by having a reputable background that people can say about me, that I follow through on what I say, that I deliver on X, Y, and Z, but also maybe that I'm charismatic, right? So you want to make sure that what your end game, it meets that. Maybe you're someone who doesn't want to be in the limelight, and that's okay. Maybe you're someone who just wants to focus on, I'm a hard worker, I keep to myself, I keep my head down, but I'm a really great performer. That's also great too, and you can embrace that brand. You have to figure out what is true to you, and how do you then make sure that the whole world sees you in that light. And the other piece from a business perspective, it's really helpful from a networking perspective, because who do you want to surround yourself with? The people that you surround yourself with, they're the ones who really help showcase the brand that you're doing. So if you also want to be successful, you want to meet people that are, super smart, you want to surround yourself, because you, one, will elevate yourself to their level, but also you're sharing a lot in common, and you're being known as, oh, she's always associated with those individuals. So it's planting yourself and being smart about your social surroundings. So for me, I knew I wanted to be a leader in the industry. I wanted to be known as a woman of force in business. I knew that in order to do that, I had to position myself to where I was around those individuals. So hence, meeting people like Chaya was going to large conferences, starting women's friends' networking groups, positioning myself where I'm with the decision maker or where I'm with the person who has the most influence in the room and creating networking opportunities with them. And that then becomes my brand. Because again, I'm known as someone who's going to elevate my status to be with those types of individuals. So you have to think about, again, back to your mission statement, what you're trying to accomplish. Where does that go? So let's take a look at my LinkedIn profile, just so you can kind of get an idea of what I've done with my social media, and keep that in mind as we're actually going through the presentation. So let's get in there. Okay, so here's my profile. So when you think about building your social media, and again, we're going to expand more on this in a little bit, I like to really customize things and help people get a sense of who I am. So, I always tell people, put a background in behind your picture, set a tone for what you're trying to set your image as. So for me, I want a professional image that's clean and crisp, but I also want to highlight my two main businesses that I have so that people understand where my focus is for LinkedIn. I'm using it from a business perspective. I'm not using it to brand myself personally in more of like a home life situation. And then profile pictures are really important. I find a lot of times when people are taking a picture for their LinkedIn, they're oftentimes doing a selfie or they're doing a picture in a non-professional setting. And so maybe that works depending on the purpose of why you use your profile. But you have to think about that, because that's also the image that the company's first seeing as is, what impression is this person going to make if I have to have them in front of a customer? What impression is this person making in terms of, are they open and inviting? Or does this seem like someone who isn't taking their life seriously? So I always recommend, whether it's in your business career, your job world, that you have a professional picture that you're utilizing. One thing I also do find, though, that is important is this should only be in your LinkedIn and social media. This should not be on your resume. We really don't want to have anything that is giving away anything that could be used under what's called Title VII, which is a protected class on your resume. So any reference to your religion, your race, your sex, all those things we want to keep off your resume. But so going down, you'll see that I've created a title for myself. So what do I want to be known for? I'm actually setting the tone. So you'll actually see Chaya mentioned this earlier. I want to be known as an entrepreneur. I have had 3 businesses and who knows how many more I'll decide to start. I'm a well-known speaker and I want people to know they can reach out to me to engage me for those types of speaking events, which is why I've actually created a badge down here where I actually provide those services. I like to connect people, which we talked about before. But let's also show a little bit of who I am as a person. I'm a dog mom. I've got 3 gorgeous dogs, and they're a huge part of my life because I do a lot of rescue work. And that's a part of who I am and my personal brand. That also opens doors and conversations for me with people because I let a little bit of my wall down and I show a little bit of who I am as a person. And then the other thing is I want to celebrate that I'm a Helix certified facilitator. So you can hire me to come in and understand the culture types within your organization and help bring all of that together. So I'm clearly stating my brand and what it is that I'm trying to accomplish. So if you're thinking about this from a job search perspective, be thinking about, okay, well, what type of role do you want to see yourself in? Plug that in here. Do you want to be known as a problem solver, a fixer, somebody who comes in and is a strategist? Put those in your titles. That's what's going to really be helpful to set you apart. So then moving down, you'll actually see these. Again, this is my own personal profile, but what is the about? I always say your about should be really about you and what you're trying to accomplish on LinkedIn. So for me, it's business, as I mentioned. So I'm going to talk about what I do at my 2 main businesses and why I think we're special. And then I'm going to actually have a lot of activity. So if you look here, I have a ton of activity that's going to pop up, whether it's me commenting, me liking things, because the more you're putting yourself out there, the more you're engaging with that community, the more you're making your brand visible or known as a subject matter expert. So I'm constantly pushing things out there. Again, if I'm even commenting on a post, doing whatever the case may be, it's an opportunity to put myself out there. So I'm going to go back to, actually, no, I'll keep going. If I go back to my profile, give it a second here. This is where I now talk about my positions. Now, it's a little bit different if you're a job seeker. I'm not a job seeker, so I'm already in place. I'm not looking to leave. So each of my sections actually talks about what my companies do, because I want to sell those services. But if I was a job seeker, I would really want to essentially take my resume, make sure it matches my LinkedIn profile and put that on there. Because if it's not going to match your resume, then again, that's going to play with your brand. How truthful are you if one representation of yourself doesn't match the other representation? Be thinking about spelling errors, formatting errors, how things are coming out, because again, that goes to the presentation of you and your brand, and also the quality of your work. We've got my education, my licenses, my volunteer work, which I do need to update because we do a lot more than that now. But this also tells a sense of community that I have, right? That I'm someone who likes to give back. You have endorsements that people have given me and references and recommendations, which again speaks to my character, which is branding. So publications that I've done, awards that I've received. So these are all things where you get a chance to use LinkedIn and leverage it for your own branding purposes. And think about how can you do that to tailor it for yourself. So moving on, let's talk about branding in your personal job search. So I thought this was really interesting. I found this cute chart over here about career branding guide. And what does that mean? And it really embraces everything you have to realize comes into play when you talk about your personal brand. It's your presence online, which we started talking about. It's not just from a career perspective, but a personal perspective. What is your strategy about your job search? That's kind of your brand too. Are you someone who's really getting strategic, tracking how you're doing things, setting yourself up as open to work on these social sites, engaging with recruiters proactively? That's a sense of who you are. Your resume and cover letter. So again, talking about that we don't have your picture on it, but we're focused on what you can add value with to an organization. And a lot of times people tend to focus on just saying, I did X, Y, and Z. But what they don't realize is in your resume, it's a chance to make yourself stand out from the crowd and talk about what are some of the quantifiable skills that you've added to an organization. Because think about it. When someone's hiring, they're hiring because they have a pain and they want to know how you're going to fix that pain. So hearing about how you printed out this or ran Excel reports is great, but what was the impact of that? You know, did you affect turnover by reducing it X amount of percentage? Did you bring in a new account that yielded, you know, whatever million in revenue or for the client or for the customer? That's what you want to position yourself because that's your brand, your impact on an organization. What are your interview skills is also how you're going to be seen. Are you someone in the room who's going to be fidgety and can't make eye contact? Well, immediately I'm going to be concerned that, you know, in this case, if it's a position where I need you to engage with a customer, that's a problem. But if this is a customer where you're never going to engage with them, you're going to be behind a computer, I'm not as concerned as long as you can deliver on what you're trying to accomplish. But these are the things that you're being evaluated by in your job search is, again, that presentation of yourself and how you interview and answer your questions. Your personal appearance, we talked about that with me earlier. Your work style. Are you someone who works well in a team, independent? Do you need to be micromanaged? All of these soft skills all go back to your personal brand and who you are. Your attitude and how that comes across, your education and your training, and what groups you're involved in. And you're going to see this as a common theme as we go through these slides. But essentially, your personal brand, like I said, is how do you stand out from everyone differently? How do you make yourself unique and valuable to the employer? What brand, again, in terms of what's your value and your mission statement? Does that even align with the job you're applying for in the company that you want to work for? But making sure that you showcase your skills. Again, not just that you've added these quantifiable things to an organization for their ROI, but how do you actually improve your own education? How do you keep yourself mind, body, and physically fit outside of work so that you are in a good place when you come to work? What does your online presence look like and how does that portray to others? And again, what are people saying about you when you're not in the room? All of these things come into play when you're thinking about your job search as well. But in general, I think just having a good brand and knowing what you stand for and what your values are really help with just understanding who you are as a person. it really helps set the tone of this is what I want to be known for. So let me now create a strategic roadmap that aligns with that and help create goals for myself. Oftentimes when I find people are kind of lost in life and they don't know what direction they want to do or what job they want to take, it's typically because they haven't created a mission statement for themselves. They're not really sure what they stand for. So how can you plan for life or a job if you don't know what you stand for and what you want? So you really have to have that self-reflection first moment before you can understand how to build your brand. But it's definitely a confidence boost. It helps you once you start talking about yourself and promoting yourself, gives you confidence, especially when you're in that interview, because people want to know that, okay, this person can actually speak up and say that we can do X, Y, and Z, whether it's themselves or for somebody else. So it definitely can help you improve there and gives you career flexibility, because if you learn to have a voice and you represent a good brand, immediately people are going to say, you know, this Joe Smo would be great in this position because he's mentioned and already positioned himself at all these networking events where he's interacting with people, he's engaging. You know, we could definitely transition him into more of a sales capacity. Or maybe you're known as someone who your brand is you like to mentor people and you like to help them grow. So maybe that's going to be seen as an opportunity where we can move you into a leadership or a management role. So if you notice the trend here, your behaviors, your soft skills, your traits, everything you do is what sets the tone for your personal brand. It's just essentially saying, who are you? What do you want to be known for? And this helps you grow personally and also determine, okay, now that I have that roadmap, where do I want to invest in myself? And, you know, it really helps set the tone of what degrees you pursue, what certifications, any types of continuing learning, activity out of work, whatever that is, all becomes a part of making who you are at the end of the day. So what I would say is I'm going to go through, I think it's about 10 tips on what I would say you need to do to improve your brand. So once we talk about, you know, determining your values, your passions, what is your mission statement like we've talked about, it's how do we make sure that we're consistent in the image that we're putting out. So we want to make sure if I'm saying this, then I better live and breathe it. I can't just be Jekyll and Hyde. So I can't come to work, be one person, and then go home and be a completely different person. One, it's really hard to live two different lives and keep up with that story. But also you need to have this be natural. You don't want to be a fake person in your brand. You want to be true to who you are. So figure out how do you reinforce that in all of your communication style, your interactions, the messaging that you put out. That's important. Personal development, again, we talked about what do you need to plan for yourself in terms of next steps for you and what you're trying to accomplish with your goals and your image. So maybe your personal brand is I am somebody who wants to, you know, work a way up to a senior leadership role. So what do I need to do to get there? And how do I also promote what I'm accomplishing? So on social media, you'll see a lot of times you can add those certifications, those badges, and people want to celebrate your accomplishments with you. We want to be happy for other people. So don't be afraid to promote that, whether it be your resume or on social media. But always, and this is something I talked about is important to me, is honesty, integrity. So always remember that you need to have complete transparency around who you are and trust that other people will then also see you for who you are. It also builds this relationship where people are going to come back and they're going to want to be your advocate. They're wanting to be your ambassador to support you, high five you, and really showcase what you accomplish as a whole. You want to create an excellent business network profile. So we kind of started talking about what that looks like on LinkedIn, and I gave you an example of mine, but this needs to be, again, going back to consistency. What are you pushing out on Facebook, Instagram, or other social media sites? Is it the same messaging? If I'm a potential employer, you've got this wonderful professional LinkedIn profile. And then all of a sudden I go look you up on Instagram and I see you in a very unprofessional situation, or maybe voicing some concerns or speaking ill of a past employer. I'm going to be thinking, oh, okay, I don't know if this is someone that we can trust or maybe reliable in this situation. Maybe you're applying to work in the healthcare industry or the childcare industry. And if I see you doing inappropriate behavior, that's a huge red flag for me based on the type of role I'm going to put you in. So being consistent in terms of your brand, your messaging, and what you're speaking about is definitely critical. So one of the ways that you can actually see how well you're performing on social media, and I think this is really cool, is there's something called a social selling index. So I'm going to click on this, but it essentially tells you, is your profile strong? Could it be better? How does it compare with others in your industry? So it's a really good baseline to see if you're on the right track. So let's click on ours and see what we look like. All right, so currently this pops up. So this is my social selling index. So according to LinkedIn, I'm in the top 2% in my industry and 4% in my network. That's pretty good, especially considering I'm currently around 71 out of 100, where most people in my industry are 39 out of 100 or 42 out of 100. So this is a really good, again, baseline for you to understand how well are you establishing your professional brand. Apparently, I could do some more work on that. How you're finding the right people, engaging with insights, and building relationships. So you'll notice my strongest is building relationships. I fit the whole 25% of that score. Even professional brand, I'm almost at the 25%. This is really important for me because I need people to understand who I am, what I need, but I use this most for building relationships. And apparently I'm very effective at it. One of the things I don't do is I don't really do a lot of recruiting. And in terms of finding the right people, because I, at the end of the day, use it for everything. This would be higher if I was daily recruiting, but I have a team that does that for me. So this is something that I encourage you all to try. So you'll see the website up here, but it'll also be in the slide that you all received, but it's linkedin.com/sales/SSI. It's your social selling index. So take some time after you've Googled yourself to do your social selling index and see, okay, how well do you rank? What work do you need to do? The other thing you can also look about is how you're rated on different review sites. Now, this could be LinkedIn, which I know we're talking a lot about LinkedIn because it really carries a lot of clout in the business world and in the job search function. But it's also, what do people say about your references on LinkedIn? But also, if you were in business, are people saying good things about you on Google and Indeed or Glassdoor? Think about also what reviews you may be leaving, right? Even if it's on Yelp. So if I'm an employer and I'm doing a Google search and I'm putting in your name, those reviews you leave, even on Yelp, are going to pop up. And I'm going to see what you're having to say about others. And then I'm thinking, okay, was this professionally presented? What was the situation that caused them to write this review? How are they going to feel about our situation? So you have to think big picture about, what you're doing and the impact or ripple effects it can have. A lot of people don't think about that before they act or behave. So you really want to be cognizant of how you can be self-aware. Building up a strong social network is really important. Who are you connected to? This is what always gets the politicians in trouble, right? Or the celebrities, because they connected with the wrong person or someone who had a different view. And this are the things you have to think about is okay, is this the type of individual I want to be associated with? The messaging, if I like this article, if I share this article out, that's now going to be perceived as what my perspective or my view is. So a lot of this, I think, happened during COVID, where we had a lot of issues from a diversity and inclusion perspective. And a lot of companies started jumping on the bandwagon saying, okay, we're going to put out a statement about how we feel about this situation, where companies actually never got involved in that communication before. So I had to think about, as a business owner, well, my brand now affects anyone who works for me or is associated with me. So do I want to have a stance? But if I have a stance, are people who I work with or who work for me going to have a different stance? And is that going to change their perspective or feelings about our relationship? So I chose I'm going to just do the right thing and say, I respect that everyone has an opinion and we can all keep them or do what we want with them, but I wasn't going to push one narrative or another. Now, other companies may have a different approach, but I was trying to be protective of the people in my circle because we all have different opinions. And you have to think about that when you are, again, sharing articles, connecting with people. Because at the end of the day, just like I always say with politicians or anything, when they go back and they look into your history to understand who you are, you can always just be guilty by association. So think about that. Build up a strong offline community. This has always been really, really huge with me. It's really that human interaction that I think has been lost a lot with these virtual interactions. But getting to know people, getting to know, one of the things I learned in sales and just in recruiting in general is 80% of your conversation should be completely non-business related. Just getting to know each other, building a connection, and then 20% focused on the actual business piece. And that's really helped me to get to understand people, who they are, their challenges, their problems, so that I can then, again, as my brand, as a connector, figure out how can I weave my way in and help be a solution for them, or can we help each other? And that starts helping to build my network, which helps build the brand, build the community, and help towards my long-term missions and my goals. So it's also, maybe you're someone, I'm thinking about a young lady I'm mentoring now. She's somebody who knows she wants to go into business analytics. Okay, that's wonderful. So how does she surround herself with the right people in that community to build that brand? So she's finding people who are business analysts that can help her understand the job market, understand the day-to-day responsibilities, what are the certifications that she needs. She's creating that roadmap and making sure she's surrounding herself by those like-minded people offline, because they're the ones who are going to help her grow. Looking for someone who can hold her accountable as a mentor. So that's one of the things I think you see here as a sponsor or a mentor. It's really great if you can find that one person, because it is hard, especially if you're not someone who's an extrovert, to talk about yourself all the time. And the idea of having a mentor is they can be your sponsor. They can speak on your behalf and advocate for you. But beyond that, maybe you are that extrovert. How do you set your brand? By actually getting and outreaching to people and sharing your message. Create a podcast, write an article. Podcasts have become the newest craze, where everyone really has an opportunity to become an influencer. But again, it's what is the message you're putting out and what are you saying? And then be thinking about, how can I always be looking for an opportunity with someone? That's something I think I've never turned off, whether I'm at work or I'm at home, or I'm just talking casually to someone in the checkout line at a store, is always be nice, always be smiling, leave that experience with someone, but never know who you're talking to or who they know, because it's something my mom taught me, is never burn your bridges. And what I've learned is, even when I travel to Texas or to different states, somehow I always run into someone I know or someone who knows someone I know. And do I want that person to know that I'm a closed off person who's a tough business person and I'm cheap and all these, negative things? Absolutely not. I want to be known as someone who's willing to help you, give you an opportunity for a fair, a fair evaluation of who you are as a person. And I think that that's what I've accomplished. So, and the volunteering work, just how that adds to my brand as well. Knowing your industry is really important on the recruiting perspective, even as a business, but it really helps you to set yourself apart as that SME that we talked about, subject matter experts. And forgive me, this slide was originally intended for when I was coaching some recruiters. So I realized I didn't tweak this one section. But it's also the importance of, now you see it as a recruiter, they're doing the same things. They're trying to connect with people within certain industries so that they can learn from them and build those relationships. And the same thing really applies to a job seeker or anyone. But also, how are you interacting with all of the people in your industry? So this is where you start discussions, join conversational groups and chats, figure out how you can all come together and come up with some great ideas. This is where also you can even get even more creative if you want to create your own hashtag as an influencer and get to see if you can build a following that way. But before you do any of all these things, these suggestions that I'm giving, and I know I probably sound like a broken record, think about, what is the message you're putting out? What do you stand for? What are you liking and posting? Do you want everyone to have that perception of what they're seeing? Pick and choose what you want to share. You have that choice. Just because there's the social media and everyone's out there and you can Google everyone, doesn't mean you have to put your whole self out there. There is still a lot of value to keeping certain things private. I don't post a lot of things about my personal life or my family because to me, that's private. I like to focus on what I'm trying to accomplish in the business world. So let's see how we're doing on time. So good. We're actually really great on time. So what I really just want to wrap up with is that at the end of the day, I really believe that branding is important in anything that you do in life. And again, it's just defining who you are. And maybe you're still trying to figure that out. But maybe this whole advice I'm giving you and determining what is your value and your mission statement, just those two things alone, if you walk away with those today and figure out what that is, will be a huge step in the right direction of determining your personal brand and what you want to do within your life. How do you want to differentiate yourself? How you want to be credible and known for, and then create those connections. So take the time, think about that, and really embrace the whole concept of personal branding and what you want that to be. So with that, I want to thank you all for today. I think I had about 40 minutes or so that we wanted to present. And I think we kind of just finished short of that, which gives us plenty of time for questions if anyone has anything they want to ask.
You actually timed it perfectly, Kristi. You were right there. It was great. It was great. We did have a couple of questions that I did see come up. One was about the social the tool that you mentioned, and where is that part of LinkedIn or part of LinkedIn Premium?
It's actually open to anyone. It's just part of LinkedIn. Yeah. So let me go back to that slide just in case people wanted to.
Yeah, we had a few people that kind of jumped. They were having a few internet issues. So
I always like to give people fun tools to play with. So it's literally this website up here. Let's see if I can make it bigger for those who want to see. Oh, no, it only lets me do the screen. It doesn't let me do the website. All right. But it's www.linkedin.com and then /sales/SSI. It's completely free. I do not pay for this tool. You just Google it and it should work for all of you. But you have to be logged into LinkedIn when you do it, I believe.
It says shows as Sales Navigator. Sales Navigator is a different.
It is, but I don't even have Sales Navigator.
Oh, great. I have, so I'm able to easily get through this, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, I don't have Sales Navigator. So I've done this. Other people have taught me this and it's been free.
Yeah, this is actually really nice and helpful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We had another question come up. Are there any tips or tricks to find out for yourself what your mission statement values are if you don't know what they are yet?
Absolutely. I think the first thing that you can do is actually just start writing a list of words or ask your friends and your family, like, what do you guys, if you were to describe me to somebody, how would you describe me? What am I known for? What do you think I could do better at? It's something that I call a SWOT, which is a strength, weaknesses, opportunity, and threat on yourself. So if for those of you who haven't seen it, it's kind of like a box and you have SWOT, SWOT. And so you go through and you determine, okay, so as a person, whether it's my behaviors, my work, my life at home, what am I really good at? What are my strengths? And then think about your weaknesses in terms of, okay, where do I need to improve and add value? Opportunities are, what could I be potentially doing that I haven't thought about? Maybe I could go out and start coaching Little League. Maybe I should get involved with a local chamber. And threats are, what could prevent you from doing that? Is it time? Is it money? Is it childcare? Is it just your personal self holding you back? So I think doing a SWOT analysis on yourself first helps you kind of set the tone as to how do you determine the next step as to what you want to be known for. But it can't just be an individual project. You really want to engage with the people in your circle because they are going to give you a different perspective, perhaps, of how you see yourself. But going into that exercise, you've got to be open to the feedback. You can't get upset. And you just have to be humble and willing to take the information as it is.
Great answer, Kristi. I also want to say that, many times we attach big meaning to, coming up with our mission and all that stuff. I think it also kind of evolves as you're getting more and more experience, and you should be open to refine it or change your direction if needed. It took me 40 years to really figure out what I love to do. So.
That's 100% right. I mean, you're probably going to need to do a SWOT on yourself almost like every year because you go through so many life changes, right? I'm in a new life change right now. I'm pregnant. So I have to think about, what is my new direction going to look like? Is it going to be the same brand and path that I've been on, or becoming a mom? Does that change the brand and the audience that I'm talking to? So these are the things you have to think about. So to Chaya's point, just because you say this is who you are doesn't mean it's not going to evolve or change.
We did have another question come up. Are there any guides you can recommend on how best to create LinkedIn posts that convey your expertise, either through leadership or something that, how to create them according to the brand that you're building for yourself?
I will say Google's your favorite friend, and YouTube. It's usually where I start with everything. I mean, LinkedIn itself, they have their own learning tool that will give you a lot of those resources where people have posted blogs. If you're interested from a job search perspective, on the Jersey Staffing website, I've actually created a video on how you create a LinkedIn profile catered to your job search and what you want to showcase and highlight. If you're looking to do it outside of your job search, I would really just recommend going to Google and seeing what other people have done. The best thing you can do is look at other people and see, okay, what can I learn from how they did it? Don't duplicate it. Don't clone it by any means, because that's still a version of plagiarism. But figure out what you can learn from what other people have done. The more profiles you look at, the more people you expose yourself to, you're only going to learn in the process.
Oh, we also had, actually, somebody had an interesting question, and I was kind of wondering this myself. What's the difference between your personal brand and your reputation? Or is there a difference?
I don't really think there is a difference. I think the two go hand in hand together, because your reputation essentially is your brand. It's what you're known for, who you're known to be, and what you stand for. So to me, reputation is the same thing as, is this someone who is, for lack of a better word, a bitch? Is this someone who is, not open and welcoming? Is this someone who micromanages and, all those things? That's their reputation. But, I want to preface that when you encounter people like that, before you give them a blind shoulder and think that that's not someone I want to work with, I don't like their reputation, think about, is there a reason why their reputation's like that? Maybe they don't realize, maybe they're not cognitively aware, or maybe there's something at their personal life that's triggering that behavior. So a lot of times we have that with coworkers. There's, this reputation of, I can't work with this person. They're so difficult. They won't move forward unless they have every single detail of information. I just need to get it done. Well, that's their reputation, but maybe they do all those things because they need to make sure if they're putting work out, they have all the facts. So how do we adjust our work style to work with that individual? So this is something that we do as a Helix facilitator, is understanding people's culture types, which plays into their brand and their reputation. What is their work style? That's the same thing. It all is one big thing. So reputation, it all goes together. It's what you want to be known for.
Yeah, that's a great answer. It goes together. And also, the way I look at it is brand is something that you create that impression about yourself. You put it out there, as who you are through your personal branding. And then reputation is really the result out of it. How people feel about you and talk about you, think about you. That's what is the outcome of the brand that you create for yourself.
Absolutely. Good questions.
Yeah.
I did have somebody who asked an interest. I think you kind of answered this before, but somebody was saying, keep in mind, when we're young, we're not always the brightest bulbs in the pack. So what if something bad comes up when you Google yourself and you're trying to rebuild your brand? Like, how do you go about addressing your brand?
Well, a lot of it depends on what's coming up, and is it something that you can remove, right? If we're talking about something in a government database that we can't remove. You know, we can't control that. So what we want to do is get ahead of it first, and say, you know, look, because I will say most employers now are actually Googling you, and they can even do background checks that do a social media check on you, depending on the relevancy to your job. So you want to get ahead of it and say, hey, you know, if just to help you understand, this is where I am now, but earlier in my career, I made some mistakes. Here's what happened, but this is what I've done to, you know, fix the situation, to make it better. I've taken classes. I've done this. I've changed my behavior, or, you know, you don't need to go into specifics, but because that's just too much personal information, but you want to let them know that that's not who you are anymore. But there are ways where, and it does cost money. You can go on sites like Spokeo, I think it's Spokeo, and there are others where you can actually pay to see what pops up when people do searches on you. And I personally can't give you the step-by-step instructions on how you do it, because every site's different, but there are ways that you can navigate removing some of your personal information, like your age, your demographic, your location, all that stuff, if you want to keep that private.
Yeah, just to add on to that, you know, we do have some clients who come to us and say that, you know, can you make sure the bad stuff, you know, not showing up on Google search on the first page. So there are ways to actually push it down to other pages, especially as you said, Kristi, with the government websites. It's very hard to get it removed. And if it's a social media thing, you can at least coordinate and make sure that profile is pulled off. But in instances like that, I think the best thing is, you know, try to send out as much positive messages as possible, right? And then utilize tools of search engine optimization tools to ensure, you know, your information is positive information is coming up first, and then negative one gets pushed down the way. And it is a lot of effort, and it has to be done consistently so that the message doesn't pop up again. So it's like a war field out there. If somebody wants to make your reputation bad, that you're going to go against them. And I hope none of you are in that position, but it is like a war. But there are ways to push that negative information to the down to, you know, later pages.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because, you know, examples of how you could do that is just by looking at when we pulled up my Google on my name. My name was like probably the first 4 pages. Why? Because it's every association I'm involved in. It's every organization I volunteer with. It's articles I've written. It's my social media postings and me tagging other people. It's how many people tag me, right? So SheTek tagged me like a gazillion times over the last few weeks promoting this event. So I don't know if you all saw, but when we Googled me myself, I was like, SheTek was right at the top. So that's leveraging that optimization to Chaya's point.
And here's an interesting kind of question, and I guess it depends on certain things, but somebody wanted to know, can your brand kind of shift as you go along in your career? You might kind of shift your career. Certain things about yourself, obviously, you're not going to want to shift as far as your integrity and things like that. But are there things that you do that you can shift as you kind of transition to a new career, or change something about your life or your lifestyle?
100%. That's the same thing we were talking about before. You evolve. You constantly change paths or directions. Maybe you're changing careers. And that still goes back to, you need to reevaluate what you're trying to accomplish. It's going to change all the time. Maybe you're someone who is in marketing, and you've decided, I need to get out of it because it's just too volatile for me. I don't like it anymore. I want to be more in a strategy role where I'm not doing the creative element. So now you have to reposition what that means to you, who you're surrounding yourself by, again, what certifications, what education, what training you need, how you want to be seen. So no, I think you absolutely are going to grow and evolve, and constantly just use the same principles and methods that we talked about on today's call.
Excellent. Nice questions and great responses. Thanks, Kristi. Do we have more questions, Joanne?
No, that's it. That was our all the
Okay.
questions from the crowd.
I do want to close with one, I think my experience meeting Kristi, I know Kristi mentioned that one thing I noticed with Kristi is she has that ability to create an impression. I think that's very, very important. When you meet people, the way you present yourself, you talk about yourself and the work that you do, you create an impression. And she created a great impression, first impression as soon as I met Kristi. And then by what she does, again, attracted me to learn more about her. And I know, Kristi, we just met for an hour and then we really became good friends and we kept in touch. And that's what it's all about, branding, really. It's about creating that impression, being able to influence others and be able to, have that positive outlook where people they feel like, engaging in conversation with you. That's very, very important. And I really want to applaud Kristi for the work that she does. And thanks again for this beautiful session. And there are a lot of great points that we talked about, and we can talk for hours on this.
Yeah.
But really appreciate your time and the great input, that advice that you provided. I know how busy you are, but really appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Kristi.
No, I appreciate you both for having me today. It's been fun. You're right. We could talk for hours. I immediately started thinking of what are all the things that I do? Like, I think about how when I'm in sales, okay, how do I want to position myself as a person in the room? So when I'm at a conference, I always make sure to ask a question. So everyone knows this is Kristi. Yeah. And she had a smart question. So I really am glad that we connected and this has been fun. So thank you.
Thank you for all that you do.
And it has been great. It's been a very fascinating and interesting conversation with everybody. And I want to thank everybody who has come, and our attendees have all stayed through the entire show. So that's a great thing for us. I have a few little things as we wrap it up today, literally right on time. So a few points about SheTek. To remind you that this was presented to, the outlet is presented to you by SheTek, which is all about engaging women and helping women get into tech and stay into tech and have that support system for them and help them build their own personal brands. We do this through engaging, empowering, and employing and building those resources for you. A few things that are going to be coming up soon, just so you have them here. My computer will do its thing. Kristi had even mentioned this. SheTek has a mentorship program, and we are always looking for people who want to be mentors and help support young women in the field and mentees. If somebody is looking for a mentor and trying to figure out how they can go and continue in their field or how maybe they can grow, please reach out. You can see the link there, and we'll send it to you when we send you the video. But we have some opportunities for some mentorships coming up. So please, if you're interested either as a mentor or a mentee, send us a note. And lastly, volunteers are always needed. We have a bunch of events coming up that we're going to need help planning. And again, for our tech mentorship program. And if you have any questions, want to help, have an idea, you can always reach out to us at contact@shetek.net. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. It's been a great outlet. And have a great weekend. Thank you, everyone.
I do want to add one thing. I think it would be nice if we all can join the SheTek community. So go to the SheTek website and join the community. You will get notified of every program that SheTek is going to conduct, webinars, outlet series, employability skills that we talked about, and also the big conference that's coming up.